The Sunshine Coast, at the centre of Australia's eastern shore, is famous for stunning beaches and perfect waves. But what lies offshore, beyond those beaches and below those waves, has remained largely unknown to the scientific community. Certainly plenty of people dive and fish the nearby reefs. Spearfishing and aquarium fish collecting are also popular activities in these waters. But try to search for data on biodiversity and species composition on these reefs, and you will find a void. Marine surveys are undertaken by scientists to assess quite simply what's there. What habitats are present, what species of fish and corals live in those habitats, and how abundant those fish and corals are. Authorities have been managing this marine resource without really knowing what's down there. But now, all that is about to change. The Sunshine Coast's first marine biodiversity assessment is conducted by a small team of scientists led by coral specialist Dr. Lyndon DeVantier and fish biologist Dr. David Williamson of James Cook University. The study was commissioned by the Noosa Integrated Catchment Association with support from the Sunshine Coast Regional Council, the Norman Wettenhall Foundation, Underwater World and the University of the Sunshine Coast.
This work we're using as a bit of a baseline to document what's here now, and then in 5-10 years, even further down the track, people in a similar way can come out and have a look at what's here and see whether it's the same or better. We would hope it'll be better.
For this trip we're really focusing on the inshore reefs. They're high use reefs and they definitely have a high conservation value.
A baseline study is a critical first step to any research that aims to monitor changes over time. You need a record of how things are now so that you can accurately compare it to how things are in the future. These waters, like all marine environments, will react to local changes and global influences, from fishing, collecting and pollution to potential climate change. With this data in hand, policymakers can better determine where further research and conservation efforts would best be directed.
In terms of the general health of the area, the coral cover's pretty good in patches. We haven't seen any major mortality in any of our sites that we visited so far. It's a dynamic environment, but it seems to be doing quite well at the moment.
Typically, coral reefs grow very close to the water's surface. This maximises their exposure to sunlight, without which they cannot grow.
Because the reefs here are a bit deeper than you find further north, the light is a little bit of a limiting factor, so you're getting big plating corals that can cover up to several square metres, and also some beautiful vase-shaped corals. They're growth form designed to capture as much light as possible.
Fish life is a great indicator of the health of a coral reef. Generally, the more abundant and diverse the fish, the healthier the reef.
Well, the diversity and abundance of fish is higher than I initially expected. There's over 200 species of reef-associated fishes along this part of the coast. The reef patches are relatively small, and the habitat is fairly uniform. So the range of species is going to be limited, but still 200 species is a fair number for this part of the world.
We've got about 90 species of reef-building coral so far, and we expect that there's probably 100 or so altogether. The whole of the Great Barrier Reef hosts about 400 species, so we've got about a quarter of the regional tally just here on the Sunshine Coast. So there's like a half a dozen species of cooler water reef-building corals that are predominant here, and which you may spend a couple of weeks diving further north and not see a single colony of that species.
Fish and corals may have been poorly studied here, but there is one marine group that has enjoyed some attention.
The mollusks. Richard Willan from the Northern Territory Museum has compiled a list of over 800 species, including a couple of nudibranchs that were shown to him by local enthusiasts that he believes could be new to science. So there's some interesting results coming out. we're doing a coastal survey, and probably the furthest offshore, as you can see here, we're a couple of kilometres out. We're at the Gneerings out off Mooloolaba at the moment, so we're getting some degree of coastal influence. There's certainly a fairly significant recreational fishery that enjoys these waters.
There's also commercial aquarium fish collecting, which is also obviously causing impacts on these reefs. You've also got close proximity to the coast, means we've got input of nutrients and pesticides and herbicides and sediment runoff from the land and from the catchments. So these are potentially very high impact reefs. There's a lot of wave action affecting these reefs, and they're obviously dynamic locations. But that said, there's still a lot on them.
The scientific community are expecting that the seas globally will continue to warm, and with a warming ocean offshore here, we would expect to see some additional coral species and fish species.
Potentially these reefs could act as future refuges for both corals and for some fish as the waters warm up. There could be large sections of the Great Barrier Reef, for instance, which in future decades become inhospitable locations for corals. So the corals that are here on this part of the coast, the majority of them are sourced from the Great Barrier Reef.
We are part of a much bigger picture here, and marine populations, because many of them have planktonic larvae, they drift in the currents, and so each of these little areas can be considered as stepping stones.
This area could act as a refuge down the track, and potentially through the East Australia Current could continue to supply coral larvae further south down the east coast of Australia.
All in all, I'd say it's in reasonable shape. We would obviously like to see a lot more fish here, particularly the target species. They're fairly rare on the ground, and I think if you had the opportunity to speak to some of the longer term fishermen around here, they would tell you that the fishing isn't what it once was. And so that's one of our concerns, that we would love to be able to set up management aspects that would ensure that the fisheries are sustainable into the long term.
It should be noted that this study is a record of what is here now, after 150 years of Europeans enjoying and using this precious resource. We're calling it a baseline study, but the truth is the natural order of things, the real baseline, disappeared a very long time ago. But it's better late than never. We hope that this study will signal a new direction in responsible management of this wonderful and valuable marine resource.